Beyond with Shamarie, where the questions matter more than the answers, and every conversation opens a door.
Hello and welcome to Journeys Beyond with Shamarie. I'm really glad you're here. Lately I've been reflecting on something that I don't think we talk about nearly enough in the personal growth world. We spend a great deal of time talking about healing childhood wounds, healing relationships, healing trauma, healing limited beliefs, healing our nervous system, and all of this is very valuable, and it has certainly been part of my own work for many years. But recently I have found myself wondering, what happens after the healing? Not after we've become perfect. Because I don't think any of us ever arrive at perfection. I mean, what happens after something within us has genuinely shifted? Because I began noticing something in my own life that didn't fit the maps I had been using for years. There wasn't one obvious issue to work on. There wasn't one emotion waiting to be released. There wasn't one belief that suddenly explained everything. Instead, life itself seemed to be quietly reorganizing. Some things that had always been of interest to me no longer held the same appeal. New ideas kept arriving. New creativity expanded into spaces I never expected. Artificial intelligence became part of my work. I found myself writing songs, creating videos, developing characters, exploring entirely new ways of teaching. If someone had described this version of my life a few years ago, I probably wouldn't have recognized her. And yet, none of these things felt false. They felt surprisingly natural. The strange part wasn't the life. The strange part was that my identity hadn't caught up with it. I realized I was still introducing myself through an older version of who I believed I was. Have you ever experienced that? Perhaps your life has quietly changed, but internally you're still carrying yesterday's description of yourself. Perhaps you've become stronger than you realize, kinder, more creative, more discerning, more willing to say no, more willing to be seen. But because the changes happened gradually, your identity hadn't quite caught up. The realization led me to something I've begun calling emergent integration. For many years, I've watched people move through what I think of as directed healing or directed integration. We choose something to work on, we become aware of the pattern, we process it, we learn from it, we gradually settle into a new rhythm. That process has a recognizable shape, but emergent integration feels different. It doesn't always begin with a problem. Sometimes it begins because the life itself has expanded. New possibilities become available. Old identities no longer fit. The person you have quietly been becoming begins to ask for more room. That can feel exciting, but it also can feel unsettling. Because human beings generally like certainty. We like knowing who we are, where we're going, what comes next. Emergent integration often asks us to live without those answers for a while. Not because everything has gone wrong, but because something is still emerging. One of the images that came to me was standing on shifting sand. When the sand moves beneath our feet, our instinct is often to move faster, to regain certainty, to make a decision, to define ourselves again. But every movement stirs the sand a little more. Sometimes clarity comes, but not because we force it, but because we become still enough to let the sand settle. There is another aspect of identity that has touched me deeply as I have explored this. Not every identity we carry has been lived. Some identities were built around hopes that never came to pass. Perhaps someone always imagined becoming a parent. Perhaps they imagined growing old beside a lifelong partner. Perhaps they prepared for a career that never unfolded. There can be grief not only for the experience itself, but for the version of ourselves we expected to become. That identity deserves kindness too. And then there is another question. Who have I already become, but not yet acknowledged? I think many of us minimize ourselves far more than we realize. We dismiss our growth because it has become familiar. We overlook our courage because it feels ordinary. We continue introducing ourselves through identities that no longer tell the whole story. Perhaps emergent integration is in part the process by which our identity becomes large enough to include the life we are already living. Not inflated, not grandiose, simply accurate. That word has become very important to me, because acknowledging who we have become isn't arrogance, it's honesty. It's allowing ourselves to recognize what life has quietly been shaping over many years. And maybe that's one of the gifts of growing older. Not that we have all the answers, but that we become a little more willing to hold complexity, to recognize that more than one thing can be true at the same time. Someone may have loved us and still hurt us. We may have done our best and still made mistakes. We may be grateful for our lives and still grieve the lives we imagined. Perhaps wisdom isn't about certainty after all. Perhaps wisdom is the willingness to make room for all of it. And as we come to the end of today's episode, I'd like to leave you with a few gentle questions. Who have you quietly become that you haven't yet fully acknowledged? What identity have you carried long after it stopped fitting? Is there an unlived identity that still deserves your compassion? And if nothing has gone wrong, what if life is simply asking your identity to become large enough to include the person you have already becoming? Thank you for spending this time with me today. Until next time, may you continue noticing the patterns that shape your life. May you gently make room for what is emerging, and may you remember that healing creates space, but integration teaches us how to live within it. Take gentle care, and I'll see you next time on Journeys and Beyond with Shamarie.
Every journey changes us a little. Thank you for letting this one be part of yours. Until we meet again, Journeys Beyond with Shamarie.